Arizona State's game plan is going to be very, very simple, and Baylor fans are not going to like it.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day and making it the best Baylor show on YouTube. Today, we will talk about Arizona State. Is Sam Levitt about to do his best Jackson Arnold impression? Ooh, that doesn't sound great. Plus, Arizona State's been hit hard with injuries. Does that mean they only have one real pass catcher out there? Plus, are these coaches on the same paths? The answer might surprise you. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. We start where we start. Baylor, Arizona State. The Bears coming in as dogs at home. Fine, whatever. Arizona State, obviously the defending Big 12 champions. There was so much made of these two quarterbacks in that debate last year. I've made myself perfectly clear on it. Sawyer Robertson was the second best quarterback in the conference last year. He should have been second team all Big 12. He just was a little bit better than Sam Levitt in pretty much everything. But Sam Levitt got the nod. That's what this matchup should be about. Two of the best quarterbacks in the conference, in the best quarterback conference in football, and two of the best returning quarterbacks in all of college football. But because of a few injuries and game plan and the way that Baylor's play defense, it might not be that way, or at least it might not be the way you're expecting. It's probably not going to be like Mahomes and Jared Goff on that Monday Night Football game, or for a different generation, a Ken O'Brien versus Dan Marino. No, probably not that. Dave Aranda, when asked about Arizona State's quarterback, Sam Levitt, he had this to say this week.
Quarterback is very dangerous scrambling. We've played some quarterbacks that are dangerous scrambling. He's right up there, if not the number one guy of all of them. I think he's very fast, and when he decides to kind of cut it loose, he can make big plays. Both throwing it on the run, but running it for sure.
That is like literally the last thing I wanted to hear Dave Aranda say. Like, that's the worst thing ever, okay? I would have rather Dave Aranda been like, yep, we're playing in purple this weekend, and Larry Fedora's the OC again. I would have rather heard that than what he just said about Sam Levitt. Oh, great. He's a scrambler. Oh, great. He's the best scrambler we've seen. You've already been taken to the woodshed by a quarterback scrambler this year. And if this kid's actually a better scrambler than Jackson Arnold, this could be a very long game. Like, we've already faced what's supposed to be the best quarterback scrambler we'll face all year, and they hung 38 on us in our own building, and he didn't even need to pass. If I have to watch a repeat of what I watched in week one against Auburn, I don't know what I'm going to have to do on this show, man. Like, that was the worst thing that we could have heard. And the thing is, he's right. Sam Levitt is a good scrambler. You know, he didn't need to do a ton of it last year. He was still good at it, but he expected pocket passer Sam Levitt, 20-plus touchdowns, less than 8 picks. You know, that's what he's going to do. He's going to sling it on you. You've got a good receiver core. Well, that's depleted. We'll talk about that in a minute. And now he could just put on his Jackson Arnold costume because the numbers, guys, are scary. Sam Levitt has not had a great season thus far. Not really at all. His completion percentage is down. His yards are projected to be lower than they were last year. His yards per attempt and yards per completion are down. The touchdown and interception numbers are both expected to be worse than last year, just based on the 3 games he's played so far. He's completing less than 60% of his passes. He's only thrown for 527 yards. I mean, Sawyer Robertson could do that in one game. You know, 5 touchdowns thrown, 3 picks. He only threw 6 picks all of last year. He's already halfway there, a quarter of the way through the season. but he is getting out of the pocket. He's running 6 yards a carry, just about. That'll play. And I wanted to see how much that matched up with Jackson Arnold, because we had heard, obviously, of Jackson Arnold and seen him and saw him last year for Oklahoma and saw that's a running quarterback. Sam Levitt is a good quarterback who happens to be a good runner as well. Jackson Arnold is a running quarterback. That said, Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma last year ran for 444 yards. Sam Levitt last year ran for 443 yards. I mean, you can't make this up. You cannot make this up, man. Jackson Arnold last year, 3 yards a carry. Not all that great. Sam Levitt, 4 yards a carry. This year, Sam Levitt, 5.8 yards a carry. Jackson Arnold, 5.5 yards a carry. When you are talking about a scrambler, these two guys are the same when it comes to their production. The same. And they're roughly the same size. Jackson Arnold has about 10 to 15 pounds on Sam Levitt, which does make a difference in the run game, but essentially they're about the same size. Jackson 6'1", 219. Sam Levitt 6'2", 205. So they're essentially the same size. They're both bigger than Kevin Jennings. That's the name of the SMU quarterback. So that really is going to keep me awake at night the next couple of days, guys. That really has me in a tailspin. Because I watched Jackson Arnold run for 137 yards against Baylor a few weeks ago and did not need to throw the ball to score almost 40 on their home field. That worries the crap out of me. By the way, Jackson Arnold has only, 70 rushing yards in the next two games after facing Baylor. It's got to be better. Again, I know, and I'll talk more about Dave Aranda specifically later on in this show. I know we've talked a ton about the defense this year and talking about his reputation as a defensive guy. He needs to come up with a better plan. This should be a great shot at redemption. 3 weeks after you just got gashed and embarrassed with your defense, you've got a team coming in that has a quarterback that is doing the same thing as Jackson Arnold this year. If you don't have a game plan for that, then we're starting to ask some questions. If and again, this is hypothetical, if Arizona State goes into Waco and beats Baylor the same way that Auburn did, and the book on Baylor is just don't even pass, then that's going to be a huge problem. That is going to be, that's not the last mobile quarterback you're going to face. One of the best teams in this conference has probably the best mobile quarterback in this conference, and that's Utah. Oh yeah, a couple of weeks after you face Arizona State, 2 weeks after to be exact, you are facing one of the best mobile quarterbacks in this conference, and they desperately need a win. They're called the Kansas State Wildcats, led by Avery Johnson. So the whole run threat quarterback thing is not going away. This is a chance to put on tape that you can actually stop a mobile quarterback and that you can't just run a read option every single time and Baylor won't be able to stop it. I'll go back to the Dave Aranda quote after week one. When we were all set up and everything was ready to go and we were all in the right place, it was 4 yards. When we weren't in the right place, it was 8 to 10 yards. Cannot have that this week. This is an absolute nightmare to hear that Dave Aranda says that Sam Levitt is probably the best scrambler they faced this year. It'd just be another Chandler Morris, another Jackson Arnold. You remember that Chandler Morris? Boy, did I unlock some core nightmare memories there, didn't I? Anyway, Arizona State might have to run the ball a lot because they're really hurting on the offensive side. We'll tell you what receiver is actually going to play and what Kenny Dillingham had to say about this matchup and about Dave Aranda. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our good pals over at DoorDash. And by the time you're listening to this, I will have really enjoyed some nice DoorDash. last night. It's almost the weekend, though. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order. This player delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. I got to give it to Micah Gifford this week. Seriously, that dude delivered, man. He was a high school wide receiver, big, tall kid, comes in, plays some special teams. Remember, Dave Aranda gave him really a lot of praise last year for special teams play. Now he's on defense. And not only did he have a tackle for loss, he also had his first career interception. Okay, he came through. No hesitation, no delay. And just like Micah Gifford delivered for the Bears, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you can save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms do apply. Promo period running through November the 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, who put a lot of money in my pocket, and they can do it for you too. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you are ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using it because it fits really however you like to bet. Some days I'm feeling all in on player props. Some days I'm feeling a same game parlay. Sometimes I'm just doing a money line as the action unfolds. Okay, FanDuel has it for all of you. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. You think Baylor's got some injuries, and they do. But Arizona State's really hurting right now. They are really hurting right now. Kenny Dillingham announced Xavier Alford starting safety out. Montana Warren starting quarterback questionable. Jalen Moss, who's going to slot in as one of their starting receivers, out. They're down to like one real pass catcher. Now, said pass catcher is the second best receiver Baylor will face this year, maybe third. I mean, Singleton and Cam Coleman are two terrific players for Auburn. But now it's Jordan Tyson, who was one of the best receivers in the Big 12 last year and really one of the best receivers in the country last year. How about this for them spreading the love, by the way? He is their leading receiver so far, Jordan Tyson, 24 catches for 314 yards. Their next leading receiver, Shimon Mateer, I think is how you say that, the tight end. So I'm giving pass catcher here, 80 yards receiving this year on 7 catches. And you want to go down to you want to go down the list of their receiving yards leaders. It goes Tyson, then Mateer, tight end, Kyson Brown, running back, Raleek Brown, running back, and then you got to get to Malik McClain, the 5th leading pass catcher on this team to get to the second wide receiver. And oh, by the way, he's rocking with 3 catches for 13 yards. Like, you look at that and you see how Baylor plays week in, week out. If you're a Baylor fan looking at that, you're like, how do they win any games? How do they win any games? That's crazy, man. And it's going to be even thinner in this game. If you're Dave Aranda, once again, man, you can scheme on one receiver. That was maybe the problem with Auburn. One of the many problems in the performance against Auburn, which I'll reference again, because they have the best receiver Baylor's faced this year and they have the scrambling quarterback. This game starts to look a lot like that. But you had to really key on like 3 guys, like really keep your eye out for them. And specifically that last Jackson Arnold touchdown, you'll remember, is a 4th and short. And they loaded the box, but they made sure everyone was looking at Eric Singleton, who wasn't loading up the box. And Jackson Arnold looked him off and ran in for a touchdown. That's going to be the same kind of case, except you only have to focus on one. It's just Eric Singleton out there. Jordan Tyson, that's been the case for all 3 games, though, and he is still producing. He's still producing at over 100 yards a game through the air. Like, this kid is legit, man. He is for real. But you look at how shorthanded they are in that department. And then again, on the defensive side of the ball, Montana Warren, the quarterback, questionable. Xavier Alford, their big-time safety, a guy they really like, out in this game. You want to talk about a bounce back, potentially, for Sawyer Robertson, who was still fine against Stanford. You want to talk about a bounce back, though. How about facing an Arizona State team in your barn at night wearing the black uniforms, and they're down 2 of their best secondary players? That could be huge. That could be huge. There's going to be some fascinating matchups that I want to talk about more in tomorrow's show, specifically CJ Fight and how he can really wreck the game for Arizona State's defense. But that like Baylor has its injuries, right? Dawson Pendergrass is not walking through that door. Devin Turner's not walking through that door. I don't really want to hear much about those guys because you go into the season without them. It's not guys that went down during the season, but you're still working back Carl Williams to health. You're still working back Jackie Marshall to health. Like there are still some guys that need to get right and get going. And, Sawyer Robertson might not even be 100%, but the injury problem over at Arizona State could open a door for Baylor, which means this could be a shootout. Like it really could be a shootout, just in 2 distinctly different styles. Like I don't know that we've seen anything in the 2 weeks or the 2 games since the Auburn game to say, oh yeah, they'll stop a scrambling quarterback this time. Sure. And on the Arizona State side, I don't think there's anything even from last week's game that shows, well, maybe Sawyer just won't throw that much. Maybe he'll have an off day. He won't. He almost never does. So this could lead to a ton of points. Want to hear what Kenny Dillingham had to say about this Baylor program and specifically about the defensive side of things. Kenny, obviously a big offensive guy, but what he had to say about the defensive staff at Baylor.
They're a good football team. They're well coached. I coached with their defense coordinator, Coach Powell Lidge, but at Oregon. He's one of the best defensive minds. Coach Aranda is known to be one of the best defensive minds, and Coach Pav is they've got an unbelievable staff there, and they do a really, really good job putting pressure on you on both sides of the ball. They're stout up front on the defensive line. They're big. They're strong. They bring all their simulated pressures where you have no clue where it's coming from. They play odd. They play even. So, they do enough. I think the greatest challenge is putting our guys in the best position to be successful and play fast because I think their coaches do a nice job.
And it sounds like a lot of coach speak in there, but I think what Kenny says in there about the way that Aranda approaches the defensive line is something that is sticking out to me because we've heard that before, right? He changes a bunch of fronts. He confuses the heck out of quarterbacks. He didn't do that against Auburn. And I don't really think he did it against SMU either. But specifically Auburn, I looked at as a quarterback with deficiencies and a coach that knew the quarterback had deficiencies, is one of those quarterback whisperers, kind of like Kenny Dillingham is, and can get him the right game plan. It was up to Dave Aranda to really muck up that game plan, and they didn't. It didn't look like they were very confusing. They obviously did not have any kind of physicality at the line of scrimmage, which Dave himself has been complaining about this week. That's not just Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor. That's Dave Aranda saying we're not physical enough at the line of scrimmage. We're not physical enough up front. So a little bit worrisome, but just as I say, this could be a bounce back for Sawyer Robertson. Why can't it be a bounce back for Dave Aranda? I thought the Auburn game was going to be that. I said it in the buildup. I said it's been a long time since we saw a Dave game plan where he just had the quarterback and the OC in a blender. And I thought he could have done that against Auburn. Didn't do it against SMU. Here's another opportunity. Because no longer can we say, oh, the games don't matter. It's not conference yet. This is it. And how about this for a lid lifter in the Big 12? You've got the defending Big 12 champs coming to town, which, by the way, something else that I didn't want to throw another Kenny Dillingham quote in here, but he said about Baylor, they were the hottest team in our league last year. And he said they were basically a Hail Mary away from keeping us out of the Big 12 championship game. And I thought, it's a heck of a way to think about it, because it kind of is. I don't like calling it a Hail Mary necessarily, although I did at the time, because it really wasn't that. But that Colorado play probably kept Baylor out of the Big 12 championship game and propelled Arizona State to having a date with the Texas Longhorns. Boy, what that could have been. Baylor and UT. Baylor coming off a 7-game winning streak at that point, because they would have had to win the Big 12. That would have been something. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about these coaches because the similarities there are very interesting. Should it be buyer beware for both fan bases? Let's talk about it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, Mazda. Nothing but Mazda. I feel like Kevin Costner in Draft Day. Mazda, nothing else. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Okay, from footwork to breath work, the athletes out there on the field, they sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our Bears, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Coming back here on Locked On Baylor, I wanted to take a look at the two coaches here because I find their paths very interesting, but more important than interesting, very similar. Okay, Kenny Dillingham is coming off a Big 12 championship in his second year at Arizona State. Right? That's right. Yeah. First year, they were 3-9. And the second year, they beat all these ranked teams, and they won the Big 12 championship. Kind of makes me think of a guy I know, Dave Aranda, who came in year one, had never been a head coach before, much like Kenny Dillingham, had been a dynamite coordinator, but had not been a head coach. Struggled year one. Kenny won 3 games out of 12. Dave won 2 out of 9. And then the next year, wins the Big 12 championship, wins the Big 12 Coach of the Year, has all kinds of expectations going into the next year, goes on the road in week 2, does not have a great performance, and loses late. Is this sounding familiar? Baylor was ranked number 10 to start the 2022 season. In week 2, they went to BYU. They lost in overtime. Arizona State, week 2, goes to the house that Blake Shapen built in Starkville, Mississippi, and loses in the last minute of the game to Mississippi State. BYU didn't end up all that great that year. Mississippi State probably won't end up all that great this year. So it's weird how similar this is, man. One on the defensive side of the ball, one on the offensive side of the ball. Both had success in the SEC and the Big Ten. Well, I guess we can't really say. Kenny was at Oregon. Can't really call that a Big Ten team. But having success at these legit Power 4 powers, right? For Dave, it was Wisconsin and then LSU. For Kenny, it was after leaving Memphis, it was Auburn, Florida State, Oregon. So it's super similar. And having gone through this Dave Aranda experience, I wonder if we could tell Arizona State fans exactly how similar this was, if they would have a little buyer beware kind of thing. Because Dave, after the 2021 season, obviously had all those offers, right? He said no, and I'm glad he did. But then the next year, his stock was down kind of immediately. And Kenny Dillingham could be heading towards that as well, which kind of leads me into what I was talking about on the show yesterday. Because I think it's been getting quite misconstrued, actually. So I opened the show yesterday by talking about Dave Aranda and the interest from UCLA. And I think most of that segment, if I remember correctly and listened back to it correctly, I talked about how UCLA is not as good a job as Baylor is right now. And I used the hypotheticals that if this becomes a disappointment, if this season goes to 7-5 or even 8-4, I think that would be a disappointment with the personnel you had coming back. Then that would have Baylor fans thinking, maybe we'll just be okay with him going. Okay. I didn't say, let's fire Dave Aranda. I didn't. When I want them to fire Dave Aranda, you'll know, because it happened before on this show 2 years ago in 2023. Now, the show was not as big as it is now. I probably wasn't as good as I am now, which is really saying something because of that. But I was saying for weeks, like, it's time to fire him. And when they decided not to fire him, I was apoplectic that they didn't fire him. Like, I'm in the Dave Aranda thing right now. I'm not like all the way in of like, hey, never fire him for anything, but I'm not putting a for sale sign on his house, on his lawn. I'm not doing that. But there's going to be interest there from UCLA. I'm surprised. Let's be honest. I mean, we can still believe in what the momentum that Dave has going here, but be surprised that another school wants to pry him away and potentially pay a $10 to $12 million buyout. I think that's weird, because that was 4 years ago was the success. You know what I mean? But you look at the proof here. Baylor's won what? This is now last 9, 10. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. That's pretty good, man. That's a pretty good run that Dave Aranda is on. And there's still tons of momentum in this program. You know, you're still coming off a top 30 recruiting class or top 35 by some publications. And it's going to be even better this year. And Dave's starting to get it right, you know, and I think he'd admit that too, in terms of the NIL. The portal has been good to Baylor the last 2 years. And obviously the whole recruiting has stepped up a notch, but recruiting his backyard has gotten way better. And if we're to believe that the other coaches around Dave Aranda were the problem the last couple of years, you got to say the hiring's been pretty good. Jake Spavital, I'd call that a pretty good hire. Keenan Hall, maybe one of the best hires in their history based off how it's kind of saving Dave's job in some ways right now, because we know he went into Mac's office and talked about how they needed to get better at recruiting. Keenan Hall was hired, and he has been a dynamite recruiter. So I was talking about UCLA being interested, and there are fans who comment on pretty much all the videos, at least all the post games, that are not Dave Aranda fans at all. Some that wanted him to go even after the 6-game winning streak last year. So I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say some fans would think, okay, bye. I don't think it's the majority. But if you polled McLean Stadium in a game where they're down by 10 points, it might be 70% saying Dave's gone. You poll McLean Stadium when they're up 14 points, might be 70% like we're all in on Dave Aranda. So it goes week to week, but I am not calling for Dave to be fired yet. I don't apologize for opinions on this show. You will know. It's like, did that person go to Notre Dame? Yeah, they won't shut up about it. I'll let you know when I'm thinking it's time to can Dave Aranda. I'll throw in a couple hypotheticals too. Let's get to trivia before we get out of here. We went with yesterday's question, which was, Sydney did get it right after the buzzer, by the way, which was, when Kenny Dillingham left Auburn, which was the answer from the day before, to become offensive coordinator at FSU, whom did he replace? Scotty B in there again. Ask Dr. Paul in there again on YouTube. That answer was Kendall Briles. Might be easy to forget. He did a year at FAU. He did a year at Florida State, and then a couple at Arkansas. But yes, he was at Florida State, and they needed to replace him with Kenny Dillingham, who, you know, the jury's still out on him, but I think Kenny Dillingham's a better football coach if I had to pick one. So now we shift to today's one. It's, again, Arizona State themed. And the question is this. Again, first one to get it right in the comment section on YouTube or tweeting at us at Locked On Baylor gets a shout out next episode. Who was the last Heisman Trophy winner to play at Arizona State? First one to get it in the comment section or on Twitter gets a shout out in the next episode. The last Heisman Trophy winner to play at Arizona State. Get that in the comment section below. Get your score predictions in the comment section below. Definitely be asking for more of that tomorrow, but definitely want to see where the fan base is at on this one. And let me know what you think about the whole quarterback scrambling thing. I'm a little worried. And then let me know that Sawyer Robertson is better than Sam Levitt. So get in the comment section, like and subscribe if you do think Sawyer Robertson's better than Sam Levitt. I'm going to thank you for making it your first listen today and every day, and remind you that you are some of the best damn fans we have on YouTube, bar none. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one of Locked On Baylor.